Well, look what the Oscars dragged in. Welcome to Up and Adams. This is so exciting. Free agency is here. We had big winners at the Oscars, the Academy Awards last night. Who will be the big winner in free agency? Who has the most money to spend? Some deals, some rumors, hopefully get cleared up today. And to get us ready, we have a treat for you. Former NFL GM of the Atlanta Falcons, Thomas Dimitroff, plus lifer, New England Patriot, three-time Super Bowl champion, Devin McCourty, joining us, my old coworker. We used to go to the cubicle and go to the office and share slices of cold pizza. We've got Up and Adams starting on No Sleep now! So I did get to go to the Oscars. If you follow me on social media, I was posting some things. I saw two prominent members of NFL royalty that I'll create maybe a blind item for Devin McCourty when he comes on. But if you have any guesses, you can hit us up at Up and Adams Show. It was an incredible night, incredibly inspiring. And, we have free agency here today in an hour, which is insane. The theme of the night last night, outside of my prevalent and rabid imposter syndrome, was relentlessness. And I want to focus on that today because that is what it is all about. The theme was that the Oscars were telling you and screaming to you through a television set, don't stop showing up. Don't stop trying. Be relentless. Be in pursuit of something. And it wasn't about the big stars. It wasn't about the Tom Cruises. He had an insane movie. He didn't show up. It wasn't about him. It was about the supporting actors, the guys who've been through a lot, the Brendan Frasers, the Jamie Lee Curtises, the KP Kwans of Encino Man fame. It was all about that. So the theme, as we should carry it over, and as I'm thinking about it on No Sleep here, with his move to LA and getting to do crazy, amazing stuff like go to the Oscars, is that, in fact, as you look at free agency, it is the, Bears. Are you going to go do it? You have the money. You started something. You made a crazy trade. You got DJ Moore. Are you going to keep going? Aaron Rodgers. Are you going to give up because it might not be exactly where you want to go and, sit on the side and take off for 2 years, 3 years, think you can come back to the NFL? Do you think you can find a home with the Jets? Is it somewhere else? Can you call Green Bay and somehow make it work? Can you do it before this negotiating window kicks off, as you're sort of hamstringing at least two franchises that need to make their decisions? Now, noon Eastern today, it's going to be flooded. It's going to be tons of news. So we're going to get to as much as we can. Like I said, Thomas Dimitroff is a perfect person to have on the show, and I'm super grateful for that. But it's all about, last night was all about the late round stars. It was about the Tony Romos, the Richard Shermans, the TD Terrell Davises of the world, the Shannon Sharps, the Kurt Warner stories. It was about that. Who can pull that off today are some of the questions that we have. So you got this negotiating window going on. And the Oscars, I'm going to try to think of my favorite parts. It was just amazing. We'll get into it maybe a little bit on a day that's not such a big day in the NFL. But it was an incredible time, and I'm very grateful that I got to go. And I had the best date in the entire world. Okay. Let's get into some of this. So we had news over the weekend we have to chew on because these are setting the table for things that might happen in what is a gauntlet in the AFC East if it wasn't already. Okay, the Rams, they dished Jalen Ramsey to Miami. Miami's trying to fix the defense. Who was talking about this defense when everybody wanted to clown on Tua? Up and Adams was saying, listen, this defense needs to step up. They're 24th in the NFL all last season, so I'll dig into that more with Devin in a little bit. But the Bears also pull off a blockbuster deal. They shipped the #1 overall pick to Carolina in exchange for the 9th overall pick, next year's first rounder, 2 second rounders, and star wide receiver DJ Moore, who I love, Mr. 1,000 yards, and now he's got Justin Fields throwing him the ball, which I love. They have their quarterback. They feel good. And I talked about this a lot at the end of last week, sort of saying, let's get this done this weekend. There's no reason to wait and keep it going. Justin Fields entering year 3 of his new rookie contract. The Bears have a ton of cap space that they need to go and spend. And the window to be aggressive, to be, like I was saying, Oscars vibes, relentless, that you were the Brendan Fraser. You were great back in the 80s and you were doing a thing and maybe had a couple hits from then, but now it has been quiet and you need a Brendan Fraser this thing 2023, the whale style, and be aggressive, relentless, believe in yourself, and be champion. So it was the right call to sacrifice a little as far as draft comp to get Fields, a veteran wide receiver, is special. Somebody that I've talked about since he popped on the scene in Carolina. So the Bears, they had maybe the weakest group of wide receivers last season. They certainly didn't have anyone who can do things, oh my gosh, like this. And the Oscar goes to DJ Moore. So if you want to max out what you can get out of Fields, and you do, it's a great start. And you still picked up more draft capital to add more talent to the roster. So Ryan Poles, I'm in. This is an A+ so far. Panther side, also relentlessness being shown here. They move all the way up from the 9th overall pick and then go get their franchise quarterback. And it seems like they're still undecided on who that might be. There's even talks they might end up liking multiple quarterbacks in the draft. Are they going to, deal that number 1 pick to Houston potentially or Indy? And that's the kind of question I'm going to ask former Falcons GM. But very much the GM mentality who's faced this tons, Thomas Dimitroff. So he'll be on this show with all of the thoughts in a little bit. And then there is the aforementioned Aaron Rodgers thing. And I hope Conrad back there will interrupt the show as soon as we have any news, because I imagine this has to happen imminently. I was surprised it didn't shake out over the weekend. I don't know what Mr. Rodgers could possibly be mulling over at this point that's going to tip him in one direction or the other. I would assume he has his decision made, and the ball is in his court fully. If he wants to be a Jet, he will be a Jet. Packers president Mark Murphy, as we all know, made that really clear on Friday when he says the only way Rodgers will remain a Packer is, quote, if things don't work out the way we want them. So that relationship seems done. I would be the most surprised if he ends up back in Green Bay, and the least surprised if he just gets this deal done with the Jets. I can't see him hanging it up. I don't think his mind works that way, and he's got a lot more to give, and that money, I think, is a thing. And I also don't think he's the guy who shies away from an AFC East situation. So from Rodgers' perspective, I would just say get ahead of it. I don't know what we're waiting for, I guess, is the thing with that scenario. With Aaron, because he's got lots left in the tank. He showed it on the stretch last year. Everybody saw it. So this talk about retirement, I think, is probably real or something he's thinking about. But I don't know. Let's see here. We're getting some tweets from you guys. I'm not seeing any real update on Aaron Rodgers, which is insane, because if you're the Jets and you're Green Bay, you're held hostage here for a minute or two, trying to figure out what can we do with our, salary cap. These moves are being made ASAP with these big swings and situations. The Bears are probably going to come out and do something right away. So if you're Green Bay, you want to know what's going on. And I'm hoping he ends up with the Jets, because I think it's between Jets and retirement if I'm him, and I don't want to see him retire. What did I want to talk about here? I was going to bring up the whole Tom Brady retirement thing, but we'll leave that for after. Okay, we are going to take a break here, actually, early, because we're going to have Thomas Dimitroff on the show. And who better to break down what's going to happen, what's ahead for all of this. Maybe we'll even talk about Jordan Love, what he sees out of him. This is the guy who evaluates players, makes these moves that these GMs and front offices are dealing with. So, host Oscars up and Adams. We'll be right back. The more I'm looking at Twitter, I feel for Jets fans probably the most, right? Because Packers fans, I think they've made their peace with it. Everyone sort of understands that relationship is over, that chapter is over, and it's between, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, no other suitors seem to be coming out of the woodwork here. We haven't heard of anybody emerging, and it would be a shame for him to hang it up, because he's got so much left in the tank to give, as we saw down the stretch last year. I think a big part of things, too, are Aaron Rodgers wants a team to believe in him. They want a team to give him what he wants. A top 5 defense sounds great. Some young, exciting receivers sound great. We saw the connection he had with Christian Watson and how that developed. They want someone to build around him the way the Packers have not, by whatever decision that they decided not to over the past 3 years. From the Jordan Love pick to the refusal to grab a receiver in the first round. So I think that the Jets show him by flying there, by courting him, by having more interest than really anybody that we've heard emerge, that they're prepared to go all in for him in this window. They sent the entire org to Cali to meet him. That signals exactly what someone like Aaron Rodgers wants to see that he hasn't gotten. So it's either New York, to me, or he walks away. I think it's New York, but beyond the fact that I don't think he's finished, there's a little thing that I would think about just if I'm Aaron. If walking away right now, you have too much left to give, and you're sharing your Hall of Fame enshrinement. I know that's probably not something he's thinking because he stands on as one of the greatest players ever, but you're going to share that spotlight with Tom Brady if he doesn't come back. So I think Aaron Rodgers may be thinking about that kind of thing. He deserves to be a headliner in the class all his own and hanging on for 1 year. There's money, there's panache, there's a shot at winning a Super Bowl. If they are all in and prepared to surround him with all of that. So it has to happen soon, though. He came out and said, I don't want to hold anyone hostage with my decision. I don't know if he's doing like a dramatic Aaron Rodgers-y thing where he wants to wait till the final second here. We're seeing on Twitter that nobody knows, the Jet side or the Packer side, what is going on. That is as recent as like 30 minutes ago here on Twitter. With these cap situations, the window is opening, and I can only imagine that phone, they're ready to go. It's crazy. So the more I think about it, the more I'd be surprised if he's not a Jet in the next, hopefully, hour, like an hour or at least a couple of hours. But to talk about this and everything else going on, we get to welcome in a former general manager. He was the GM of the Atlanta Falcons, where I met him as he was crushing it for 12 seasons. And he is a two-time NFL Executive of the Year, currently the CEO of a company that we're going to talk about. Please welcome Thomas Dimitroff. How are you?
Kay, what is up? How are you?
I'm so good. Before we get into all of this, tell me what you're up to. You have an incredible new company.
So a lot going on. I can't believe that I'm on the other side of the business world, but I'm a part of a football analytics company called Sumer Sports. And Sumer Sports is a roster optimization business and a roster optimization tool. So it's got so many layers to it. We can talk about it another time. Really excited about where it is. I really believe it can revolutionize where the NFL is. The NFL is moving in such a great direction with regard to utilizing data. I truly believe that the NFL right now, Kay, are criminally underutilizing data out there. So if you can get good football people out there, augmenting their abilities with something like what Sumer Sports offers, I believe it takes the good GM to be the very good GM and the very good to be a Hall of Famer, personally. A lot of people have been asking me, how would that have affected? Would you have gotten fired if you were using this tool? And I don't necessarily know that. I know that it would have made me that much better and more thoughtful in my decision making. So I'm excited about where we're going with it.
We love Sumer Sports. Can't wait to learn more about it. So let's use what you've learned there with that product and your experience as a GM for over a decade to sort of go into what today is. I can't tell if you're itchy, if you miss it, if you're relieved that you're not part of this today, but the negotiating window, it's here. It's in an hour. Tell me what exactly is happening with GMs across the league right now.
I mean, right now, everyone's at the edge. They're really at their TVs, watching, talking to people, whether they're getting calls from people around the league. Usually that happens. There's just a lot of discussion. You reach out to your 3, 4, or 5 guys that you truly know, that you're really close with, and you start asking and inquiring whether they know anything, whether there are rumors about A, B, and C, and X, Y, and Z, the money that's being around there. Of course, Kay, as you've been talking about on your show today, and they're talking about these very important issues, starting with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I think that's going to be a really big part of how things start to play out today. So, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, oh, by the way, I'm sitting there listening to your commentary and I'm thinking, you're hitting the nail on the head with Aaron. I mean, he is one of the very best to ever play this game at that position. He is so not done in my mind. And I think that the Jets to be up with this situation, I think can be an amazing thing for Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh.
Do you think he goes there?
I do think he goes there. I really do. I can't imagine. I mean, look, I think moving from Green Bay to go to New York City, I just think it's a nice, like you alluded to, it's a nice kind of finish, potentially winning a Super Bowl, having the limelight of being in New York City, doing what you can do. As you mentioned, Aaron Rodgers has always wanted to be wanted. There's nothing wrong with that. I know there are a lot of people that have an issue and they suggest that there may be a quirkiness to his personality. Personally, I don't see it that bad at all. I see it as a guy who's expressing himself. Whether he's on these interesting journeys is beside the point. If he comes there and he wins for you guys and he takes it to another level and has you knocking on the door, I think you pay the money for him and you get him there and you help that organization take it to another level, hands down.
We'll see if Saleh and Douglas can reel it in. I'm wishing them luck because he's hamstringing them right now. Like, he really is. And he said he didn't want to do it. But if you're the Jets and this huge chip has to fall, this expensive thing, it sort of ruins the rest of your plans, no?
It does, but I think those guys are taking a deep breath and they know they'll get their answer here soon. What we normally do as general managers and as team builders with the head coach is we have scenarios set up, right? Remember that the scenarios, it might be 2, 4, 10 scenarios, how things could drop. The good general managers and the developed and well thought out general managers like Joe Douglas are going to have a list of scenarios that they will approach. And their number one scenario, as we would imagine, is this. If it doesn't happen, they'll go to the next situation right away. They might be disappointed, of course. They need a quarterback there. We know that. I just think it's all going to fall into place.
Yeah, I just like that he's leaving my NFC North. I was born in Chicago, and these Bears are looking like winners before it even starts. They have the most money, so much money. They start the weekend off. Ryan Poles making a swing, saying we're going to have this blockbuster trade, sending the number 1 pick to Carolina in exchange for these 2 first-rounders, 2 seconds, and a bona fide wide receiver in DJ Moore for Justin Fields. How do you evaluate this for both sides?
So let's start with Ryan Poles. I mean, it's Ryan Poles versus Scott Fitterer in my mind, and we always do this as general managers. We look at our guys that we like and guys that we're following. Ryan Poles, in his first year, second year, going into his second year, he's got a lot on his plate. There is a lot of pressure on him finishing, at that number 1 spot and what they're going to do with it, of course. In my mind, on the Chicago side, you have this question that's been out there when people were talking. Honestly, I thought it was nonsense about, thinking about trading Fields. Like, to me, no, you continue to stay with Fields. You grow with Fields. This gives Fields and the organization the confirmation that they're moving forward with him. They feel good with him. They're going to continue to develop with him. I mean, Kay, that is a really, really important thing for an organization, not only for your coaches, your general manager, team builder, people walking around your building, the people, your fan base. I mean, it is a big deal. If you were truly thinking about, trading away, Justin Fields on something like this, think about the fallout within the organization and around it. It would be really, really difficult. So that's the number 1 thing I think is so important. I think having a number 2 receiver, DJ Moore, I call him a number 2. I think he's a very good receiver. Don't get me wrong. I think he's in the top 10, 11, 12. He also allows a team like Chicago to have Fields who's coming along and growing and learning to hit the deep ball. You also need that proper guy that's going to be the underneath guy like DJ Moore. He's very adept at that, right? What were the numbers?
Yeah.
47.5 yards that he was in Carolina as far as responsible for the pass yards. This guy is, he's just a very good football player with a lot of ability underneath, and he can make things happen. So I think that's important. And then when you're talking about getting all of these picks, look, I was a part of that with Julio Jones. I was on the other side of it, of course.
Yeah.
I was always known as Trader Thomas. I was a guy that normally was trading up. That said, I looked at this and people were asking about this. I was thinking, this is exactly what I would do. You're in such a great spot, even though you don't want to be in the number 1 spot ever, to be able to move down. He has the opportunity, Ryan Poles, to look at this, create, we have Claypool on their roster, along with DJ Moore now, get a tight end somewhere, right? Continue to build the offensive line, whether that's in free agency in the draft. I will say, remember this as a general manager as well. When you go into the building time, free agency and the draft, if you know that you can check off some of those boxes prior to going in the draft, that's a really settling feeling, right? Because there's so much uncertainty in the draft. If you can knock off 2, 3, or 4 people in free agency, I always tried to do that. I always thought that was a settling feeling. And then you really can hone in on what's potentially in there in the draft. So look, I like your Chicago Bears deal there. I like what they've done there. And I like where Ryan Poles. Scott Fitterer and the Carolina Panthers are in a very different situation, Kay, as you know. I mean, he's 3 years complete as a GM. There's a lot of pressure on him in a different way. I in no way look at this as a bad trade for Scott and company. I just look at it as a completely different approach. They know they need a quarterback. They have an owner in Mr. Tepper who is pressing them because, of course, in that run since he's been there, unfortunately, he has not landed. They have not landed the quarterback that they want to take him to the promised land. And this is an opportunity in my mind to get in that spot and to really hone in on that quarterback. Now, we do understand this Kay, when you're talking about CJ Stroud or Bryce Young or whoever that is, let's say Bryce Young, because that's what everyone's talking about. There's a great deal of pressure on him, right? We've seen that before when that guy gets picked, even though he's got a ton of cash, just his ability to stay calm and calmness and approach. He's done a lot of great things in Alabama. He could be the guy, but the pressure that you put on him is going to be really, really big. So Scott and new head coach who has had a lot of quarterbacks over the years, those two guys working together. This is a big deal for them. More pressure on Scott than it is for a new head coach coming into the building.
Okay. Not the same position, but when you got Julio Jones and you went from 26 to 6, that might be wrong, but it was something like that. You weren't saying he could be the guy. He could be an all-pro 1,000-yard receiver every year that he's here. You did not have that feeling, I'm sure. You knew he was a slam dunk. With these quarterbacks, getting the number 1 overall pick, as I understand it from a lot of talent evaluators and draft people, isn't that sexy. Having the number 1 overall pick, it's like, I don't know, is Bryce Young better than CJ Stroud? Is it? Well, do you want the upside of an Anthony Richardson? Would it be too cute for them to trade down?
No, it wouldn't be too cute for them to trade down at all. I think that's probably in their scenario building, right? Let's see what presents itself, because they're going to have to walk away. And I've been hearing that organization, Carolina, is very interested in Richardson. To me, as much as I loved what he did at the combine and leading into the draft, this is really important for him to show as he did. But there are still question marks there. I think it's a definite reach to think about him at the number 1 pick. But even in the top 10, there's still going to be question marks with Richardson. Not his abilities, but some of the development side, which I think is going to be a really important part. I think they could trade down and still land a legitimate quarterback. But again, pressure is on. Wherever that is in that top 10, they're going to have to pull something off that's going to be really, really affecting.
Former Atlanta GM, keeping it very objective and nice with his former rival, the Panthers, and their situation. I like that. Let's move on. And I love this insight. It is so important and so helpful ahead of free agency and this window opening and all madness being unleashed. There's Aaron Rodgers. We covered that. Lamar Jackson, this non-exclusive franchise tag, it was placed on him by the Ravens. A number of quarterback-needy teams almost immediately and weirdly, really, or at least optically, said that they won't be pursuing Lamar. What do you make of that?
Wow. When I look at what's going on there with the non-exclusive situation,
yes.
that's to me, $32.4 million, right? It seems like it's a legitimate enough number for Baltimore to hone in on. When these other teams are looking at this and they're saying no right now, I know there's all this discussion about collusion. I'm not looking at it as much that way as I'm looking at it as, that is a big commitment. Let's use Atlanta Falcons, my old team, as an example. When people are out there saying, wow, I can't believe Atlanta wouldn't go for this because they need a quarterback desperately, they're also in a situation, every team is different. They're in a situation where they've had cap situations over the last year and a half or 2 years that they're finally getting through. They also have a draft situation that they need to continue to build. If they gave away 2 first-round draft picks, okay, that's complicated. You also have a situation that's been talked about with Atlanta as well as other teams. You're creating a new offense. The new offense, now you step back and you think all of these things that are on your plate, what I just mentioned, as well as creating a new offense, having an offensive that's open-minded to changing their approach to offense. That's a lot on a plate of a team that is looking for a quarterback. I get it, but it is something to consider.
Can you explain why teams in the NFL are so wary, outside of the obvious maybe, of dishing out guaranteed contracts? Every other major sport has them. And if you have a star quarterback, isn't that a good way to show them that you're all in?
It is a good way to show. But if you have missed some games and if you have an agent situation, like you don't have an agent, these are concerns for teams that we can't get away from, right? So, this push right now, how drastic is it that Lamar does not have an agent working his deal? That's not only for the here and now, Kay. That's for the team that potentially takes him on, and they're talking about getting a deal done, not only now for the next few years, but also to reapproach the contract in 2 or 3 years. that's on the team's mind as well when they know that they're dealing with a mother, potentially dealing with the NFLPA, of course, but that is a big deal for teams. There's no question it is.
Can you explain? There's a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of fans who maybe don't understand the impact an agent can make, having professional, experienced representation. And there's a lot of people saying that's not it. He doesn't need an agent. Other players have gotten it done without an agent. How would these negotiations have gone differently? What is the impact of having that professional representation in something like this?
Well, I think, the number one and most obvious, Kay, is, you're dealing with an agent, you're not dealing with the player. So when you're being honest about some of the concerns that you might have as a general manager and as an organization, you're able to relay those to the agent, and the agent can basically calm the situation down a little bit and smooth it out and deliver it in a semantically responsible way, which I think is really important. It keeps the player in a good spot. It keeps the relationship in a good spot. And I think that is really important. As far as the creativity of how you put things together, if you don't have an experienced agent working with the player, yes, it can happen. We've seen it before. Things can work out well. I get that. But we're talking about, potentially $250 million in a guaranteed contract with a lot involved. It's really complicated just to go into that with someone that doesn't have the background, someone who's not registered as an agent. So I don't, and I mentioned the other elements as well. You're talking about not only the here and now, but again, not to repeat myself, you're talking about down the line. And if you're going to take someone on like that, you want to know that you're going to be able to readdress issues along the way contractually and not go back to, potentially a mother-son situation.
It's well said by you. And I want to get back to Sumer Sports before we let you go. And I'm so grateful for your time this morning. I think you might be on vacation or you're somewhere else. And I just appreciate it so much ahead of this day where all of your friends are going to be sweating it out in these front offices, drinking 19 Mountain Dews and Red Bulls. Sumer Sports, here's what I look, it provides, and I'm not a math gal, quantitative analysis aimed at creating precision in player acquisition and roster management in the NFL. Can you talk about some of what's available with that precision and how, it's a game of inches, it's a game of precision, especially with free agency and the draft process?
Well, so what I've said all along, you can get 32 general managers in the same room as us right now, and everyone would raise their hands categorically and say, yes, this is not an exact science. And yes, I fly by the seat of my pants way too much for my liking. I know the owners don't want to hear that, but the reality is they are. I have always looked at this through many, many years, through even when I was younger with my father, because I've been around football since the day I was born. And I'd always loved my ability to evaluate, like most of the general managers do. They all believe they can go toe to toe. The reality is, however, there is guesswork involved. And why not take some of this data that's available while you are evaluating the players and apply a lot of this unused data to the roster optimization and make sure that, for instance, when I used to go to Arthur Blank, I would say, Arthur, I have 10 scenarios for you in the offseason. What our roster optimization tool does with Sumer Sports is it can provide millions and millions of scenarios. Now, of course, I'm not going to be pouring through millions, but I am going to ask Sumer's algorithm, what are the top 3, 4, or 5 scenarios that would be best suited for us that would help increase, well, I won't get into a ton of detail, but help increase our roster value. And that's a big thing. Too often we're picking, and I'll raise my hand. I've done it before, like most general managers have. You go after something because you're so driven by need. We could look at Julio Jones. People have often asked, would you have done the 3rd contract with Julio Jones if you had this algorithm and this algorithmic based tool beside you? And I would say I would have done the trade back in 11, but I would not have signed the 3rd contract.
Wow.
That's how I can keep it in perspective.
And that's the precision, and that stuff matters, as we know. I appreciate you so much, Thomas Dimitroff. Go enjoy your day working on this, and every team needs whatever advantage they can get. So that is incredible that you are doing some innovative, cool stuff over there with Sumer Sports. We appreciate you. Don't look now. I don't want to bring up the Patriots, but here comes Devin McCourty, freshly retired, a 3-time Super Bowl champion, coming to a TV booth near you.
Patriots fans, They already saw you say you will never look good in another uniform. So will you continue to look good in a New England Patriots uniform?
I think that is a fact. I will always only look good in a patch uniform, but I will no longer look good in a patch uniform going forward. I'm officially retiring from the NFL.
I'm happy for him, but I don't like it because he's playing at such a high level. Why now? I need answers. Joined right now by newly retired, ouch, 3-time All-Pro, 3-time Super Bowl champion, and a good friend of mine, Devin McCourty. How are you?
I'm good. Don't hurt yourself. Don't get too excited. I know it's my first time on here.
Love your repping. I mean, it took too long, if you ask me, but you've been busy with another great season. You led this team in interceptions this season. Dev, a lot of things to talk about. You're still playing at a really high level. Why now?
I would say first off, I wanted to always lead the game, not being like an absolute bum and just stinking it up out there. So for me, mentally, I just had enough. I think it was to the point at the end of the year, I kind of knew that I probably was going to retire. But I think I needed to make sure that's how I felt mentally and then physically, seeing if my body wanted to give it a go. But, you know, having surgery, getting at a point in my rehab where it was time to like start working out and getting ready for the season again, I just didn't have it in me. And I knew at that point, probably the last like week and a half, 2 weeks, that I was going to make this decision, and then was just figuring out what the best way was to go about it. But I'm excited for what's next, and I'm excited to look back and just, you know, have a couple of drinks and just reminisce about my career and all the good times.
I mean, you have a couple Super Bowls to choose from. I ask these kind of questions to Gronk when he hops on the show. So what is that one memory that first pops up into your head? Like if you had to frame, you have these frames with your beautiful kids, and shout out to them and Doc, who I love and adore, and is probably supporting you through this retirement process that can't be easy. What photo are you putting in that frame from your entire illustrious career?
Well, that one behind me is a pretty good one at the Super Bowl, but there's a time when we beat the Rams in Super Bowl 53. We're on the sideline and confetti starts to fall and J-Max on a knee. I'm just standing over top of him, so excited, so happy for him. So I would say if someone said frame a moment, it'd be that moment. So I got a big shout out to Jared Rita in our video department, took that picture on the sideline. Great picture that, to me, really captured that whole year of watching a bum like J-Mac come to our team, get his first Super Bowl, and I got to just witness that as a big brother. Was an awesome feeling.
And you held the Rams to 3 points, so it's not lost on me. You would pick a 13-3 low-scoring snooze fest of a Super Bowl to be your absolute favorite. Okay, so the tweet was it was something about the journey or where you're going, not about what is the destination. You have this retirement announcement, which is so cool and amazing that you do it to your brother Jason. He's clearly focused on his career, which he is crushing on Good Morning Football, which you visited recently. Let's manifest this thing. What is the ideal situation for Devin McCourty?
Well, right now it's to get another job. Like you said, you know, Doc supporting me through this. Doc does not want me home. She hates when I have extended time at home. I'm at home, still being a captain, trying to run the show, saying we should do this, like that. Why are we not waking up earlier? So she wants me gone. So I'm hoping with, you know, making a decision now, retiring, that my name could be thrown in there for some of these TV jobs, and just get an opportunity to go out there and just improve. You know, I think that's the biggest thing from watching Jay. I watched his first ever show on Good Morning Football, and then being on with him that past week, it was just so cool because I'm like, man, this guy's actually good at this. Like, he's reading the teleprompter, going back and forth. I'm like, where's this guy from? Like, how did he get this? So it's just for me, just getting that opportunity. I'm excited about it. And I would say that's what's been pretty cool. I didn't think when I signed back to New England the last couple of times that there would come a point in my career that I'll be walking away from football, will be so excited about what's next. It's just, I think, hard for us football players to imagine. So to be at that point and to know that, you know, there could be some good things ahead for me is very exciting. And, you know, I'm ready to kind of take on that challenge.
I mean, I think your brother learned it from you. And don't talk about how you just realized you're good at media when you worked with me 10 years ago.
That was
NBC Sports
that was just
Boston.
a random Monday. That was a random Monday. We would pull up to quick slants. I would have come off a big win Sunday, had a good time, roll through quick slants. You would come with all the energy and candy. We just go out there and just show Tom. We show Tom Curran what to do. So that was good times. That wasn't work though.
Yeah. Do you want? You could do a million things. You do something already. You have a good reputation. Like camaraderie with guys who are really innovative in the media space. I know that. You could do your own thing. You could do the I Am Athlete sort of vibe, Brandon Marshall thing. You could go work for a network. You're just open to everything. Is there something that you prefer? Do you want to be in the booth?
I would say right now I only got to do that for 10 minutes at the broadcast boot camp that the NFL puts on last March. So I'm not 100% sure. I'm most comfortable right now doing the studio shows that I've done. And then eventually me and Jay do want to get back to, I don't know if it'll be the same kind of structure that we had our podcast going before, but we do want to get back to being able to do some type of podcast or scripted series, something like that, of being able to kind of bring out something else that, guys are doing. But, I think between, the Pivot and I Am Athlete, like they're crushing that space. So it's been fun to just watch those guys and see what they've done. So just trying to build off that and kind of use what we've done all of these years and find a different avenue to kind of be in.
And we have to mention the New Heights podcast, because you got two brothers there who are skyrocketing to the top of these media charts, crushing it. So I saw Travis Kelce last night at an Oscars party here in LA, and I saw one other NFL, Travis is Mr. Hollywood now. Here he is eating an In-N-Out burger. I'll ask you, the other guy that I saw that's in an NFL royalty world, guess who I saw last night at the Vanity Fair party?
Was it Edelman?
No, that's such a good guess. I should have given you options. No, I saw one of your favorite people, Robert Kraft, someone who you have so much respect for, and I love seeing him. He's a bright light. He's incredible. And listen, most people don't spend their careers in one place, and most people in the NFL have short careers. You did your entire 13-year run in New England. How special was that to you? And that relationship with Robert Kraft, he interrupts your press conference. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I think not only to play there, but the ability, because of the extended time being in one place, to get to know, RKK, Jonathan, Dan, Josh, like all his kids, and to be around their family, to me was probably the best part of that. And, towards the end of my career, some of the special moments for RKK, his 80th birthday party, his wedding, as Jonathan was going through the invitations, just to think of me and to send me an invite and be able to be there. And, obviously they shared in a lot of great moments for me on and off the field, but to, kind of be able to do the same thing as a friend has been awesome. And I think just being able, from your time, that you spend up here, to be in this area, just this team, the fans and the fan base, like they look at you as like, man, we love this guy because he was loyal to New England. He stayed here. And for me, that's been awesome. These last probably month and a half, 2 months of just walking around, everybody would see me and they'd be like, what are you going to do? You got to give us one more year. You have to.
Yeah.
So just being able to enjoy that. And I love this community. This whole New England community has accepted me, and I've been able to grow and do so many different things. It's an honor for me to look back on my career and say, man, for 13 years, I got to not only play here, but I got to serve a community that accepted me and was grateful. And I was grateful that they accepted me and, everything that I learned from the New England community.
It's really well said, and you're talking about this, and I'm thinking about free agency, and it starts in an hour, and I'm thinking about a guy like Levante David, who's such a stud, played every year of his career in Tampa Bay. He is that, and he's facing this decision of, Tampa doesn't really have the money. Do I go there on less money? Do I go take more money somewhere else? And it means something to be in that rare company of just playing for one squad. So I imagine if he's going to see this or watching this, that's going through his head. You were loved up there and are loved and will forever be, because you were the heart and soul of the Patriots defense. Tom Brady did his thing and you did it for all of that. Let's check out some of that leadership on display, courtesy of NFL Films.
Hey, fellas, you look around this circle. This ain't our plan. We didn't all think we'd be here. You thought you'd be going to free agency. You could have went anywhere. You battled to be on this team. You was in Detroit. You thought you went to Philly. You didn't know you'd be back. You got training here. You thought you'd get traded. I thought I'd be gone. There's a reason. God playing this, fellas. Let's dominate. Take advantage. No tomorrow. Let's dominate today. Dominate on 3. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
Where was that energy Mondays at NBC Sports Boston?
I had already used it Monday morning. That was the problem.
Are you insane? That is so insane.
It's I will say this. I remember I think it was my second year. We had veterans my rookie year, Brandon Merriweather and James Sanders, who really led all of that and led the team. And then the next year, they were both gone, and it was kind of me and Pat Chung. And anybody that knows Chung's looking at me like, man, I'm not giving a speech and talking to guys. So I just remember being in that circle and being like, man, I don't know what I just said to these guys. It was probably terrible. And then I would say being around Matthew Slater and seeing the preparation, seeing the thought that he put in anytime he talked to the team. I would say moving forward, I really looked at that time with those guys in that circle as an honor that other men would look at me in a circle and would say, man, I can't wait for this guy to get me going. I took a lot of pride in that, and I want to deliver. I want to give them, an extra to go out there and play and remind them why we were going out there to play together as a secondary. And I think for me, that's probably one of the things I cherish most, the secondaries I played in, because there was so many close connections. We knew each other's kids. We knew each other's struggles. We were there for each other. And to me, that, call it minute to 2 minutes that we got was kind of highlighting why we were going out there to play together. And the plan was to go out there and dominate and look good and play good together.
I love the idea that you just black out when you're doing that. Just go out there and have a great game, which I love. Matthew Slater, I believe, is coming back for his 97th season this year, which is one of the wildest stories in the NFL because he's such an inspiration. There's no one more beloved than him. But outside of him, who are you handing the keys to that Patriots locker room from a leadership perspective to?
I think two guys that stick out for me. I always think defense, but obviously I'll start because I feel like if I don't mention this, everybody runs with it. Mac Jones is going to be a leader of the Patriots. He's a captain, he's a quarterback, and Dave Andrews, and then obviously the other captains this past year, Dietrich Wise and Jawan Bentley. But I always when I get that question, I think the captains are obvious. But I think other guys, depending on what works out with Jacoby Myers and Jonathan Jones, to me are two guys that have a ton of leadership qualities. But I think they remind me of myself. And I'll throw Kyle Duggar in there as well. You have leadership qualities, but there's leaders all around you. So you don't need to do that. It doesn't make sense for you to talk after, either I talk or Slate talks. But I think those guys will now look around and be like, all right, we got to replace the energy, the passion that Dev had when he spoke to the team. And I think those are some guys that'll step up, depending on how free agency works out. If, Jay Jones and Jacoby are gone, then I think Doug will look around and say even more now, hey, man, I know I'm quiet, but these guys need me. I know the process. If not me, then who? So I expect some of those younger guys that are homegrown to really step up.
Dev, you're too media savvy. You didn't fall for my Mac Jones thing by, leaving him out of that answer. But are you telling me?
Every time I don't bring Mac up, I get killed.
Well, you can't. But listen, there's a lot of controversy around Mac. There's a lot of criticism around Mac. So and how he handles things and what he's like. What do you mean? Because he's demonstrative out on the field. He doesn't, he had huge shoes to fill. That's probably why. Are you telling me that Mac Jones is the future of this franchise?
Yeah, so for me, I don't understand. I'll say this. All these young quarterbacks come in, and it's they get crushed right away. Then we watch Jalen Hurts. We give him time to develop, and now everybody's like, did you see the Super Bowl he had? Man, he might have been better than Mahomes. And it's yeah, he got drafted for a reason. We see Tua down in Miami. We finally get some stability around him, get him with Mike McDaniel, a guy who's run offense, been in San Francisco. Oh, man, he's actually a good player. And I look at Mac, who came in as a rookie under Josh McDaniels, showed so much promise, ended up in the Pro Bowl as an alternate, played really well for us, gave us a chance to go compete in the playoffs, which didn't go well at all, but gave us a chance to be in the playoffs 2 years removed from the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, we were back in the playoffs. Like, you never hear that. Then last year is kind of like a new kind of testing things out with, Matty P and Joe Judge kind of running the offense, which it didn't work. And, the bad thing for Mac is a lot of that goes right to him. Like, he wasn't good. It's his fault. And I just don't see it that way. I think he's a young guy who now get a chance to be with Billy O, a proven offensive mind in this league. And I think he's going to go, and I think it's just going to skyrocket. Especially when they get DeAndre Hopkins, which they better do. Bill better get that kid for Billy O. That would be nice to see those two reunited. Dev, the other thing I'm going to say is let's cut that tape off and send it right to ESPN, to CBS, to NFL Network, to whoever, because the way that you got just so heated for Mac Jones, I could listen to that all day. You are amazing. You'll do whatever you want to do. For now, relax, have a couple beers, reminisce, and enjoy yourself. And when you're ready to party, come out here with me and Gronk and Edelman, okay? I like that idea. I might come out there and hang out. Thanks, Kay. I would love that. Much love to your family. No, thank you and congratulations on an incredible field career. You're one of the best guys on and off the field. And Mac Jones, who knew? All-pro quarterback, better than Tom Brady. That's what Devin just said. Better than Tom. Don't do that to me. Take a shot at college hoops. This is from FanDuel. Oh my gosh, I have to fill out my bracket. But listen to this, though. New customers bet the bracket and get 10 times your first bet in bonus bets. That's up to $200 in bonus bets. Win or lose. With FanDuel, you can bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to which team will score first. Make every moment more with FanDuel. My producer just told me that he doesn't trust me to fill out my bracket, so he's bringing on John Rothstein to help me. Love that. Look for that this week. DeMarcus Ware on tomorrow. Aren't Marquette and Mizzou good? Isn't Arizona supposed to have a good year? I know college hoops. Google's college hoops. We'll be back tomorrow. Isn't Arizona good? How's Rutgers? Go Devin.